Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Felix Blanket Crochet Along. So again, I know I've said this before, but this is the optional part that if you wanted to make a smaller blanket, you could just skip these part 2 videos and move straight into part 3. And also this part 2 video is one that you can repeat as many times as you would like to get your blanket as wide as you would like. In my original blanket, I did this part 2 section that we're about to work right now. I did it 2 times total. So what you'll need, I mentioned in the other video, is another one of these odd shapes with the first block coming off of it, and you can find the instructions for that in the very first video of this crochet along. So once you have that, set it aside. The next thing to do is to build a little block that'll fill in this space right here. So choose whatever color you like, and then we're going to start this bottom stitch over here, and I just go right into this chain 3 loop to insert my yarn. And you can use whatever method you like, but I like to just draw up a loop and make a chain. So these blocks along this straight edge, we build by the C to C stitch where you chain 6. So that's what I'm going to do first here. And then make a double crochet into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th chain from the hook. And then continue making C to C stitches up this pyramid, and on this very last stitch, this is where you will join to this blue here. So let's go ahead and work 1, 2, 3 more C to C stitches, and then I'll show you the join. It's nothing new, but it is a little bit different than what you were doing in part 1, just because you're joining into a block that has the floating increase, and so there's this chain 3 loop on the bottom, and so this stitch just looks different than what you were doing before. So it feels new or different because it is a little bit different, but it's basically the exact same method. Okay, so I've made 4 total stitches, and I've got to make my last one. It's going to be made into this loop, chain 3 loop right up here on top, and while I'm making it, I want to join it to this blue block that's directly above this space. So I'm going to be aiming to make my slip stitch joins into these corners, just like we were doing before, but it's, you know, it's just oriented a little differently, and there's this chain 3 loop on the bottom, so it just looks a little different, but it's the same idea. So I'll zoom in. So to start, you're just going to slip stitch into the space like you always do, and then you're going to make your chain 3 to start your C to C stitch. And then we need to slip stitch into this blue block above. I like to make my slip stitch into, you know, if I imagine that this block here, the very bottom corner. So this little loop on the underside of my chain from that floating increase, I like to just go right in there. So slip stitch, and now they're attached at that one corner. So we need to finish our stitch and attach them at the other corner. So I'm going to make my 3 double crochets. And then I need to attach at this other corner. And I found for myself, it looked a little neater if I, instead of attaching into the floating increase again way up here, if I kind of went down a little bit into the side of my double crochet stitch. So there it is, all finished. And just like before, you know, there's a little bit of flexibility if you want to play a little bit with where exactly you slip stitch. But that's where I like to do it. That's where I did it for my first blanket, and it looks fine. I know some people just skipped over the floating increase and just slip stitched into the actual base of these double crochets. That's fine too. I would say whatever you do, just, you know, pick what you think looks nice with your tension and then just keep it consistent. That's what I do with mine. And then just like before, we need to work C to C stitches all the way back down. So I'm going to chain 3 to maneuver out of this trapped place and slip stitch into the chain 3 loop of the C to C stitch I just made. So I made my chain 3. I'm sorry I veered off camera. And I'm just going to slip stitch right in here. I like to turn my work first. And then I'm going to zoom out. And then you can continue working stitches all the way back down. Okay, so I got back down, and then just like we were doing all along, we're going to make 6 rows. So we've completed 2, so we need to go up and join into this block here, come down, come up and join into this block here, come down, and you'll be finished. So if you want to work ahead, that's fine, but I'll go ahead and stop at the top again so I can zoom in and show the join again in case it was a little, you know, it still feels a little confusing when you get up there this next time, because it is different a little. Or it's not different, it just looks different. But it's the same method. So I just started by chaining 6 and making my first C to C stitch, and then I'm going to work up the side. So I made it to that spot where I need to work my last stitch and make the join. So I'll go ahead and zoom in again in case anybody needs to see that. So again, I'm just going to slip stitch into my next space like usual and chain 3. And then there's my block that's above it, and I'm going to slip stitch into the chain loop, not this, I guess I shouldn't say loop, chain stitch, not this loop. I'm going to go right here so now they're joined, and I need to make 3 double crochets right in here. So I've completed my stitch, and I just need to attach one more time in this opposite corner. And again, I like to kind of come down a little bit into the side of the double crochet. I just think that it looks a little bit neater for me and then I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and slip stitch to get back to start working down. And I'll zoom out and you should have something that looks like that. So we'll come down, increase a stitch here, come up and join one final time, and then come down, and you can fasten off with this color. So I'll just work C to C stitches back down. And so again, I got down to the bottom, so I'm just gonna chain 6 to make a new increase C to C, and then work up, and I'll stop at that last stitch so that I can show the join. So I'm back up there again. I've got one more stitch to make, and I'm going to join it right in here just like before. This time I think I'll make it without zooming in, just to show it from a little bit of a different vantage point in case that's helpful. So I'll slip stitch into the next space like usual, chain 3 to start your C to C stitch. And then we need to join into the corners of this stitch above. And again, I like to use just one of the actual loops from the chain stitch and not into the gap. I think it looks neater. You can slip stitch into that gap if you prefer. And like I said, I've even had people slip stitch into the base of the double crochet, and that works too. I would just keep it consistent, whatever you do. Now I need to finish my C to C stitch. So I'm going to work my 3 double crochets down here. I've completed my stitch, and I have one more join to make, and I want to, get it in this corner, the other opposite corner of this stitch above. And like I've been saying, I like to just scoot it down a little and go into the side of the double crochet stitch as opposed to this loop up here, because I think there's less of a gap and it looks neater when I do it that way. But where you slip stitch doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine. If there's a place that works a little better for you, that's totally fine. Just keep it consistent so your blanket looks neat. And then I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and slip stitch in here so that I can work back down. So you'll make your C to C stitches back down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you can fasten off or switch to your new color, whatever method you like to use. We'll be changing colors down there. Okay, I'm at the bottom. I made my last stitch, and you should have your first block filling in that space so that your next row you can just go all the way across. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing that we did for this green block for this second block. The only difference is just this very first row. It's another place that might feel a little funny to you, because there's a little bit of a, if you look, the gap between here, and then this one right here is just a little bit bigger. And that's because this is one of the stitches we did with the floating increase. It's got the chain 3 decrease on top, and then the chain 3 loop, or the chain 6 I should say, that loop you made for the floating increase on the bottom. So these stitches right here are just a little bit different sized, and they have, you know, like if you look at this one, the stitches going this way and then something going across this way, so they just look a little bit different. So I wanted to point that out to you, but they have a loop on top just like these ones down here do. And so you're gonna just join a new color and work all the way up, going from here straight up to there, and that will close up that little gap, and I think it'll look just fine. And then you'll get up here and work your last stitch and join to the block above, just like we did with these green ones. So I will show, I think probably just the first row of this, and then I'll probably just cut to the 4th row where we have to join the odd piece. So I'm just removing, like I always do, because I like to change my colors on the last yarn over. So I just took out that last yarn over of green and swapped it out for my purple. So I'm going to chain 6 and make an increase C to C stitch. So it's like this, and then I'm going to work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches, and I'll stop here so that I'll show you the join one more time because I'm here, but I'll just kind of stop so you can look and compare that yours looks like mine. So I just finished my stitch, my last one on top of the green. So you can see what I mean by there's just a little bit of a bigger gap here. And I just wanted to point that out in case any of you are just extra observant and you notice that on yours and you're questioning if it's right. That is happening with mine. It does happen. But as you work it, it all just kind of pulls together, and my original blanket looks really seamless and you can't tell. I do, like I said at the beginning, I do use a little bit of a smaller hook, and I think that kind of helps keep things a little tighter. So I'm just going to go ahead and work into this loop up here and continue making C to C stitches like usual. I just wanted to point that out. And then I'm at the very top, and just like we were doing with the green, there's one more stitch to make right up here, and when I make it, I'm going to attach it to this green stitch right above it, just like we were doing before, but since I'm here, I'll just show it one more time. Slip stitch and chain 3, and then we need to join to the block above. I like to use this loop from the chain stitch. Make your 3 double crochets. And then we need to slip stitch one more time in the other corner. And I like to scoot it down just a little into the side of the double crochet stitch. And then chain 3, slip stitch and turn, or turn and slip stitch, whatever you like to do. And then work C to C stitches all the way back down. When you get to the bottom, you'll do a chain 6 increase, work all the way back up, join at the top just like we did this time here, and then come down. You will join your odd piece shape on that next time that you come down, so on the 4th round, which is just like we did in the part 1. But I will resume the video there so that we can walk through it together, and again you can just kind of compare and look at your blanket and make sure that it looks like mine. But if you want to go ahead and work through finishing this row, increasing, working up and joining, and then coming back down, that's fine. Okay everybody, so I'm making my way back down, and I'm just about to that last stitch where we need to join in our other piece. So yours now should look like this. So you've made 3, almost 4 complete rows of your new color, and then you should be able to see hopefully that there's space for you to work up one more time, make one more join up here, and then come down one more time for your 6th row, and you would be done with this color. Now is the time to pull out this odd shape with the first block that you made before we started, and we're going to join it just like we did in part 1. If you don't remember, we did 4 on this 4th row of yellow is where we joined, and then we worked up and came down and joined again. That's exactly what we're going to do over here. It's just a teeny bit different because you know, we don't have a straight edge here anymore, so you're going to work up and join up here and then come down and join again. And that's really the major difference for this section, and I think is really the last sort of challenging hurdle of this blanket. From here, this point on, all of your right side blocks until you get to the top where you start straightening out, you're going to have to join at the bottom, work up, join at the top, come down, join at the bottom. And we've been, you know, we've really just been doing that this whole time. So you've got lots of practice joining at the top, and then joining at the bottom should be easy because you did a ton of it in the first part. So hopefully you guys don't need this anymore, but just to be safe, I'll zoom in. So we're going to make the last stitch right here. While we're making it, we're going to join it over here, and these are the 2 corners that I want to join into while I'm working. So I will slip stitch into this space and chain 3 to start my final C to C stitch of the row, and then I'm going to pick up my next piece, and I'm going to make my slip stitch into the chain 3 loop just in that gap to tack them together at the corner. And then I'm going to make my 3 double crochets to finish my C to C stitch. And then I'm going to make my final join, and for this piece I just do it in this last double crochet stitch. So not there, that's where I fastened off, but this last one right here, just slip stitch right in there, and now they're joined together. I'll chain 3 and slip stitch into this space here like we've been doing so that I can work stitches back up. So I'm just turning my work and I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so the final 2 rows I need to make, I'm going to come up, so I'm going to work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On my 12th stitch, I will join up here and then come back down and make my final join over here. And then you will be able to fasten off, and we'll start with the other side. So I'm going to work up to the top and come back down. Okay guys, I'm just about finished with my last stitch. And I am fastening off, and then the next thing to do is to make a block over here. I call it the left side, but if you are a left-handed crocheter, it would be on your right side. It's the unfinished side, and that reminds me I should turn my work for any left-handed people. So your finished edge would be over here on this side, and yours should look like this, and we need to build a block over here on this side. What needs to happen now, the middle part of the blanket is now set up. We made our 4 starting blocks, and now it's time to just do the repeating blocks. And you're just going to repeat a left side and a right side block just like you did in part 1. You will make the same number of blocks that you decided to do in part 1. So again, in my original blanket pattern, I made 20 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 on the left, 10 on the right. So you want to make that same number. And all of the blocks that you do for this part are going to be the same. The left side block is going to be just like in part 1. So you'll start here like we did in part 1 and work 9 up to the top, and then you'll make your 3 floating increases to get a total of 12, and then you'll work 12 down and join, 12 up, 12 down and join, 12 up, 12 down and join. So your finished block that you make will look just like this block we did in part 1, this green block. So I'm not going to make that block on camera because these videos are getting so long, but if you needed to have a refresher on what to do, you would want to go back and watch the part 1 videos, specifically part 1B, where I show the repeating blocks, and you would just need to watch the first part of that video where I show how to make this one right here, and it's identical. You know, it's the same little piece that fits, you know, right over, and you just need to make an identical block right here. So I'm going to do that now, and then when I pick up the video, I will show you how to make the repeating right side block. Okay, so once you finish this first block on the inside, you should have something that looks like this, and now you're ready to make your first repeating block on that finished edge side, on the right edge for us right-handed crocheters. And that's basically going to be, like I said earlier, those last 2 rows of purple that we did together. That's what this whole row is going to be. So you're going to make 6 rows of 12, just like you do for this left block. You'll work 9 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then your last 3 stitches will be made right here going across this other block that you have layering in. And then on your 12th stitch, you'll join to the top, come down, join to the bottom, work up for row 3, 12 stitches, join to the top, come down to the bottom and join, and work up for row 5, join to the top, and then come down for row 6 and join to the bottom. And so some of you might already have it figured out and can kind of go with that. I will do, since this is a new block, I will do some of it on camera in case some of you still need a little bit more instruction to feel totally confident with what's going on. So to start, you need to turn your work. If you haven't already, you should have ended with it facing this way. And then I'm going to just drop my loop in this first stitch down here. And then make my chain 3 and work my first C to C stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and make 10 more stitches on the 12th stitch. On my 11th one I have to work. I will join to this block up here. So I'm at the top, I'm doing my last C to C stitch, number 12 of that first row, and I'm going to join it into the stitch above like we've been doing for the other blocks on this side so far. And then I'm going to work 12 stitches back down, and I'm going to join at the bottom like we've been doing, and I will stop there and lay my work out. So if anybody wants to compare, you can just make sure that yours is looking like mine. And I'll chain 3 and slip stitch to get started for the third row. And so you should look like this. I've done 2 rows so far, and I've joined at the top, joined at the bottom. I'm going to work up 12 stitches, join at the top, and come down and join at the bottom, and repeat that one more time to join at the top. And mine looks a little, I made a smaller version of a blanket, but you'll have more blocks fanning off so that you can keep layering. But then I'll have my 6 rows of 12 for this block. And then that's it. You just repeat these 2 blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and work my last 4 rows exactly like I did these 2. And then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like with that finished block. Okay, so I have finished my right side block. Again, that was just the 6 rows of 12 attaching at the top and at the bottom for each row. And then, as I've been saying, for the rest of this section, you're just going to go back and make one of these left side blocks by working 9 stitches up the side, making your 3 floating increases for a total of 12, coming down for 12 and joining, working up for 12, down for 12, and joining at the bottom, and repeating for 6 rows. And then you'll work one of these right side blocks along your finished edge where you work up for 12, attach at the top, and come down for 12. And mine looks a little different because I didn't do multiple repeating blocks. So I brought this just in case anybody's a little bit unsure of what's going on. This is my right edge of my blanket. My part 1 odd shape was right here, and then here's my middle section odd shape. So I've got my starting 4 blocks, this yellow and blue, the white, and this kind of purple color, and then here's my repeating blocks, just going up with the floating increases, coming up and attaching, making another one, coming up and attaching, and you'll just keep doing that for the same number of blocks that you did in part 1. I did 20, like I've said, when you get to the very top, the very last block you need to make is one of these blocks along the straight edge, what I'm calling right hand blocks. But for you left-handed crocheters, it would be a block going to the left. So you'll get to the top and it should look like this. So you have kind of one more spot left to work, and that's where you'll start squaring off. And I'm going to go ahead and do the squaring off in another video just to make it easier for people to pick up and start throughout their blanket. Hello everybody, so before I get into squaring off of the top, I just wanted to point something out to you. I mentioned to make the same number of repeating blocks that you did in part 1, and I should have taken a moment in case any of you are having trouble counting your blocks. This is how you can figure it out if you forgot how many you did in part 1. So in this blanket here, you always take 4 blocks to get your panel set up. So here is our first panel, and here's 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks that we did for setup. So you would skip these blocks right here and then start counting your repeating blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and keep doing that until you get all the way to the top. At the top, it takes 4 blocks to square up the top. So this, and this are the squaring off blocks, so you would not count those 4. So you would finish counting here 19, 20 in my case. And then that could maybe help you if you forgot how many blocks you made when you get to the middle section and you want to square off.